What do you imagine when you hear Assassin's Creed? For me, even to this day, it's still Desert, Crusaders and Altair with his arsenal of deadly moves. Oh, and parkour, of course.
Parkour!
But for the most people, it's either Ezio from Assassin's Creed 2 or whatever his name was from the Black Flag. And at the beginning, all the games were presented as historically accurate, to a certain degree obviously. I mean, your quest is to find a piece of Eden, which will help you to go Super Saiyan 2 or something. But you could still visit historical places that were recreated to a certain degree, like Damascus, Florence, New York, Alexandria, Athens, or even such barbaric places like London and Paris. And obviously you could meet a lot of historical personalities. Okay, now what comes to your mind when I say Assassin's Creed in Japan? I bet it wasn't a huge black dude in samurai armor going around slashing people, but what do you know, this is exactly what we're going to get. You can ask, how does it come to this? Well, I mean, it's kinda obvious, but regardless, let's try to dig something on real Yasuke, just to check if there could be at least something to the story that Ubisoft is trying to feed us. According to
Histoire ecclésiastique des îles et royaumes du Japon
by François Solier, Yasuke most likely was born in 5030-something. God knows where specifically, but in general it was somewhere in Mozambique. Lovely place near Madagascar, with one of the lowest life expectancy and one of the worst economies in the world. Well, at least they have almost 12% of HIV positive, so it's not all negative. The only problem with that book is that it was actually written 50 years after Yasuke, and there are no other sources to confirm or deny it. So whatever, let it be Mozambique. At the beginning of the 16th century, it was visited by Portuguese, who actually liked the place so much they decided to stay and build a few forts. After that they started to pump out gold, ivory and of course, slaves. Lots and lots of slaves. To be precise, almost 5% of all slaves from Africa were from Mozambique. And Portuguese, they were quite efficient in pumping slaves, reaching almost up to 50% of all slave shipments, which is quite an achievement for such a small country. And Yasuke, he was one of such slaves. He most likely was caught by some tribal chief and sold into a slavery to Alessandro Valignano, who was an Italian Jesuit priest. Or Alessandro could actually bought him in India, where he stopped before he went to Japan. His mission was to carry the spirit of the Counter-Reformation to the East India, which brought him all the way to Japan. And obviously, when they arrived there, Yasuke was accompanying him, and their arrival actually caused an uproar. Arrival of Nanban is a huge event by itself, but apparently they bring the real demon this time. On 27 March 1581, Alessandro Valignano had an audience with Nobunaga, and he took Yasuke with him. In Nobunaga Koki, it describes Yasuke as 26-27 black, shaved male, with the strength of 10 people and a body as black as a cow. Nobunaga Koki is one of the most important Gunki Monogatari, compiled after the Nobunaga's death by Ota Gyuchi. According to the book of Louis Froid, Nobunaga did not believe that Yasuke is actually that black, and asked him to, well, basically to take a bath. Obviously, it didn't help. After that, Nobunaga took a great interest in him, and actually negotiated with Valignano to take him, which turns out quite nice for Yasuke. He was given a residence and a short ceremonial sword. So honestly, I have no idea where did this club come from. Most likely Yasuke was pretty fluent in Japanese. Nanban were trying to adopt local culture as much as possible. And you know, I doubt he speak with Nobunaga using gang signs. Nobunaga also made Yasuke his retainer. When they were traveling to the territory of recently defeated Takedo clan during the conquest of Koshu, they met Tokugawa Ieyasu, who describes Yasuke's height as Ryokushaku Nisuna, which is around 188 centimeters, or around 21 Big Macs for my American friends. But obviously couldn't last long. On 21st of June 1582, Nobunaga was staying in Honnoji Temple, where he was attacked by the rebel Akechi Mitsuhide. Since Nobunaga was guarded only by a handful of bodyguards, he couldn't resist. So he set the temple on fire and killed himself. And Yasuke, well, he actually was fighting for a very long time, until the retainer of Akechi came and told him to
calm the fuck down.
But once captured, Mitsuhide did not acknowledge him as a samurai and didn't want to kill him, since the black man is an animal and knows nothing. So instead he was sent to Sunday school at Nanbanji, and we never heard of him anymore. Yeah, it's not the most detailed life, but hey, first of all, it was almost 500 years ago. And secondly, he wasn't even remotely important, give me a break. But basically, yes, Yasuke indeed was in Japan, and he did fight and probably even kill somebody. But was he a full-blown samurai? Nah. Again, it doesn't mean he never fought. But do you really think that every soldier in feudal Japan was a samurai? So most likely in the game you would have to play as Yasuke after his life in the Nanbanji temple. And regarding him being gay? Among samurais, Shudo was practiced. Shudo is short for Wakushudo, which roughly translates to a way of a young one. And it describes traditional Japanese homosexual relationships between the already accomplished man and a younger one. But first of all, mostly it was opportunistic. As soon as samurai could get away from it, he would probably do it. Secondly, again, Yasuke was not a full-blown samurai. And thirdly, I wasn't able to find any documentation to support the claim that Yasuke was gay. But hey, I wasn't able to find any documentation that he wasn't gay, which I guess is good enough for Ubisoft. But the biggest point is still standing. For this period in Japan history, they could pick any personality and had much more engaging story, which would actually make sense. But instead they choose the story of Yasuke and his 1 year of servitude to Nobunaga. I mean, the whole narrative could be fit in a side quest. Again, it could be after his life in the temple, but even like this, why not pick someone like Masanori Hattori, better known as Hattori Hanzo for example. At least he was a real-life ninja, and I wouldn't have any issues with him being a sneaky assassin. But 2-meter black guy in a feudal Japan? Give me a break.